Hello and welcome to our week 4 edition of the preview. He's Andy Shea, I'm Adam Kulikowski, and this is our weekly glance at the 3 best matchups around our coverage area. How are you, Mr. Shea, lover of all things Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Well, minus that old dude that slings it around for them.
Yeah, he's just our quarterback. Not a Tom Brady fan, but kind of happy he's our quarterback. We're 1-0 and the defending Super Bowl champions. Onward and upward. Bring on the Falcons.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, league play is here, and what a slate we have in week number 4. Really some great matchups across the board. Let's get rolling into our previews. First up, Cumberland Valley travels to Josh Oswald's former stomping ground, Ken Millen Stadium, to face the undefeated Thundering Herd of Carlisle. The Eagles, of course, coming off that thrilling last-second victory against Springford. Andy, break this game down for us.
So, for very different reasons, this is a huge game for both teams. So Carlisle's 3-0, and they need to validate, right? They've played 2 very non-competitive teams the last couple of weeks, and I'd say Mechanicsburg, the week 1 victory, it's week 1, right? That's sort of middle of the road team that's finding its way. So I know Cedar Crest was 2-0 entering that game, but it wasn't competitive. And give the Herd, full props because they made it so, right? This is a chance for Carlisle to sort of stake its claim to being something other than a bottom feeder in the conference in 2021. Cumberland Valley might be 1-2, but it's still CV, right? And Carlisle hasn't beaten them in 16 years?
16.
So, yeah. So that is the reason this game is important for Carlisle. For Cumberland Valley, this team is just starting to eke its nose around the corner. And there's a big difference between them being 0-3 and 1-2 and getting that win against Springford. It's just one of those things I've learned over my many years of covering high school football, that one of the significant differences I know is there is a monster difference after the first third of the season between being 0-3 and 1-2 if you're struggling. And now Cumberland Valley gets a chance to be 2-2 if they can beat Carlisle. That changes the entire perspective on their season. 2-2, and they were staring down 0-3. So that is a huge paradigm shift as a team, especially with what Coach Oswald's trying to do. And he talked this week about building blocks, and they're starting to be put in place. Folks, in coach speak and what Josh is saying and knowing him, that is a tell. That is saying he is becoming more comfortable and confident in what he's seeing. And for 8 straight quarters, Cumberland Valley's defense, they've been flat out balling out. Central York, Springford, quality opponents, the defense has been balling out.
Yeah. Andy, we saw Carlisle in our week 1 game of the week against Mechanicsburg. Had a few conversations with Grant Huffman with our player of the week, or our spotlight feature. Give us a player on each team that impressed you so far that you've liked.
So for Carlisle, you could pick a lot of guys, but for me, it starts and stops with the quarterback, Louis Shank. He's the junior. He wasn't the starter at the beginning of the season. Kid coming up from JV, no varsity snaps. He took over in the second quarter of that opening game at Mechanicsburg, and he's been lighting it up pretty much ever since. Yes, he has weapons at his disposal, and he has a good variety of them. Big, tall tight end, some flash guys, some good hand guys, some speed guys, some screen guys. He's got a little bit of everything. So he's the one that's impressed me so far. From CV, it was our guest from the spotlight. It's Griffin. He's the leading receiver. They want to throw the ball more. He has some next level skills. He's been really good at the safety position. He returns kicks. He's a very good kickoff returner. He can be an impact player. He just got his first touchdown of the season against Springford, but throwing the ball in this matchup, I also think throwing the ball will be important for CV and how effective they can be. I've been impressed with him across the board, both sides of the ball, and the variety he brings. And I think he will be an important player for CV.
That was a great interview with Griffin that we were able to do this week. So you can check that out on fourthdownmagazine.com. Andy, what's your prediction for this game?
Yeah, I think it goes to 17. I think there's some building blocks. I would say a week ago, if Cumberland Valley's 0-3, I picked Carlisle to win in a squeeze. I think hearing Josh use the word building blocks and give a little bit of a tell, and particularly the way Cumberland Valley's been playing defense, I don't think Carlisle's has faced anything near this level defensively. I've got Cumberland Valley winning, and I think it's close. I'm just going to go with a low score because I also like Carlisle's defense. I think it's 17-14.
Thanks, Andy. Let's head to Franklin County, just north of the Mason-Dixon line, where Waynesboro will host West Perry. Waynesboro should feel pretty good about themselves after that wild 55-49 triple overtime victory against Gettysburg. Well, West Perry, they really wore down Juniata. That played the second half of that game last week without their star quarterback, Jacob Kondo. Tell us a little bit about these two squads.
So this could be a very entertaining game. And when I say entertaining, I mean that means if you like offense, this might be entertaining. I think Waynesboro's rebounded nicely from that opening loss to Spring Grove. I just think it was a week one game, but it was also, looking back, I think you would qualify it as a bad loss. But they have some firepower. I mean, it starts with running backs Aiden Mencina and Michael Holden. I mean, Mencina is averaging 9.2 yards per carry so far. And the quarterback, Louis Lindsay, he's a dual threat. He's got 600 total yards. They've got 5 receivers with 4 more catches. They spread the ball around, and that's tough to defend. And speaking of defense, Waynesboro's just been okay on defense, and I think that could be a sticky point in this game because the Mustangs are also on a 2-game winning streak. Hey, without the quarterback or not, that's a quality win over Juniata. They make you play a game in a box, and they're tough to score points on, and West Perry did it. So I think they've displayed, when I'm talking about West Perry, I think they've displayed some surprising variety in terms of their playmakers on offense, but I'm not sure if they have quite the same kind of firepower or the same caliber firepower as Waynesboro has. So that's one of the things to look out for in this game is if it becomes guns a-blazing, can West Perry keep up? I think if it's a little bit more of a, in between the 30s type game, West Perry can definitely keep up. But if it becomes, guns a-blazing game, that's the biggest concern for me is not that they don't have any firepower. Do they have it to extend over, say, 3 quarters?
And we jokingly call the Colonial Division the Wild Wild West. Tell us a little bit about what this game will tell us about that division and how it shakes out.
Yeah, I'm not being a smarty pants here, Adam, but it's going to tell me absolutely nothing because there is some depth to the division.
Sure
I think right now everyone's looking up at Shippensburg, but I also feel there could be a good bit of beating up on each other as we go through this year from week to week. So I'm not sure it really tells me a whole lot.
Yeah. And those Greyhounds, they are 3-0 in the Colonial. Everyone else, minus Susquehanna Township, 2-1. Andy, give us your prediction on this game.
So I'm going to take Waynesboro, and I say it takes 35 plus points to get home with a win in this one. I really do.
Okay, Andy, let's do one more before we get out. Let's go up Interstate 81 to Enola, where Greencastle will be traveling to meet the East Pennsboro Panthers. Andy, break this game down for us.
Yeah, I love this game. So I would say George R. Saxon Memorial Field is one of my subtle faves, places to see a game, but so for me, the biggest surprise in the Mid-Penn Conference this season, across the board, all the divisions, it's the Blue Devils from Greencastle Antrim. Picked to finish last, and rightfully so. It started losing by 2 points to Big School Chambersburg. They pretty much overpowered Lower Dauphin, and then they drilled DeLone Catholic by 3 scores. That's 12 quality quarters of football. I don't care what their record says. They like the games. They want the game inside a box, right? And they're doing everything to keep the game sort of there. What that tells me is their biggest improvement has been up front along the offensive and defensive line as compared to 2020. They've not only improved, but they're having an impact if they're able to keep the game like that. For East Penn, I mean, it was good to see Cy Burgers back, and they outlasted Milton Hershey last week in a shootout. Great football game. Quality win across the board. East Penn showed some more diversity. They didn't simply rely on Cy to get it done. They showed some more diversity in their offense last week, and I think that is going to serve them well in this game. But still, Cy can go off at any moment, and he can impact and change a game. I mean, he didn't have 100 yards last week, but he had, 80-some-yard kickoff return for a touchdown in a tight back-and-forth game. That's a perfect example of how that kind of player can impact a game.
And Andy, this is our Fourth Down Magazine game of the week. We'll be there on Friday night. Give us your prediction on what you expect to see that night.
I like the Panthers. I don't think this is easy either. I think this game could be a grind for all 48 minutes. I just think having a playmaker like Sy, that tips the scales for me. He'll find a way to be an impact difference maker in some form or fashion, in one way or another. Each week, he's just a little bit. I think of him as he's just a ticking time bomb. It's not a matter of if, but when. And in this game, I think that's going to matter a lot.
Andy, great analysis. That's it for this edition of the preview. Get out to see one of these games or another on the slate. There's so many great games this week in week 4. Support your local teams. Check us out at fourthdownmagazine.com for all our weekly content. Thank you, Andy, for your expertise, and see ya.
See ya.